It's strange the way a person can just vanish. One moment, they're right there, laughing, talking, maybe just tying their shoe or glancing at their phone. And then, in the blink of an eye, they're gone. No warning, no sound, no trace. It's the kind of thing you hear about on the news or in those late-night internet rabbit holes. But you never really believe it could happen to someone you know. Or to you. But the truth is, disappearances don't care about logic or comfort zones. They happen in the wild, in the safety of your own home, even in the middle of a crowd. And the worst part isn't just the loss. It's the questions that never get answered. The empty spaces at dinner tables, the phone calls that go straight to voicemail, the endless what-ifs that haunt the people left behind. Tonight I'm going to share 3 true stories of people who vanished without a trace. Stories that will make you question every shadow, every silence, every moment you think you're safe. Because after you hear these, you'll never look at missing persons cases the same way again. And you'll wonder, could it happen to you too? I've always loved the feeling of being alone in the woods. There's something about the hush of the trees, the way the sunlight filters through the leaves, the distant call of a bird echoing through the stillness. It's peaceful, almost sacred. That's why when I finally got a week off from work, I decided to spend it hiking solo in the national park a few hours from my apartment. No cell service, no emails, just me and the trail. I told my friends, and they all gave me the same look, the one that says, "Are you sure that's safe?" I laughed it off. I'd done this before. I knew how to read a map, how to pack light, how to keep my wits about me. Besides, I craved the solitude. I wanted to get away from the noise, the constant pressure to be available, to be on. Out there, I could just exist. The first day was perfect. The air was crisp, the sky a deep, endless blue. I hiked for hours, stopping only to take photos or jot down notes in my battered journal. I found a spot by a stream to set up camp, cooked a simple meal, and watched the stars come out. I remember thinking, this is exactly what I needed. But the second day, something felt off. It started with little things. I woke up to find my boots moved a few feet from where I'd left them. I figured I'd just been careless, maybe nudged them in my sleep. But then, as I packed up, I noticed a strange pattern of sticks arranged in a circle near my tent. Not natural, not random. I stared at it for a long time, trying to convince myself it was just a coincidence. Maybe the wind, maybe animals. But deep down I knew it wasn't. I tried to shake it off as I hiked deeper into the park. The trail narrowed, the trees pressed in closer, and the silence grew heavier. Every so often, I'd hear a branch snap behind me, or catch a flicker of movement out of the corner of my eye. I told myself it was just deer, or maybe a raccoon, but my heart was beating faster than it should have been. By midday, I reached a fork in the trail. According to my map, the left path would take me to a scenic overlook, while the right would loop back toward the main road. I hesitated, feeling a strange pull toward the left, even though I'd planned to head right. I don't know why I changed my mind. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was something else. The left trail was rougher, less traveled. The undergrowth was thick, and the air felt colder, damper. I kept moving, but the sense of being watched grew stronger. I started talking to myself just to break the silence. You're fine. It's just your imagination. I've done this before. But then I found the second sign. A piece of red fabric snagged on a branch at eye level. It looked fresh, like it hadn't been there long. I didn't own anything red. I stood there, staring at it, feeling a chill crawl up my spine. I thought about turning back, but something kept me moving forward. The trail twisted and climbed, and soon I realized I hadn't seen a marker in a while. I checked my map, but nothing matched. The trees all looked the same, and the sky was starting to cloud over. I tried to retrace my steps, but every direction felt wrong. That's when I heard it, a low, guttural sound, almost like a growl, coming from somewhere behind me. I spun around, heart pounding, but saw nothing. The woods were silent again, too silent. I started walking faster, then jogging, then running, branches whipping at my face, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't care about the trail anymore, I just wanted out. That's when I tripped. I went down hard, my hand scraping against something rough. When I looked up, I realized I'd landed in another circle of sticks, this one larger, more elaborate. In the center was a small pile of stones, and on top of the stones, a photograph. My photograph. The one I'd taken the day before, smiling by the stream. But it was torn, the face scratched out. I stared at it, my mind racing. How could this be here? Who had taken it? I scrambled to my feet, clutching the photo, and ran. I don't remember how long I ran or in which direction. The woods seemed endless, the trees closing in, the sky growing darker with every step. Eventually, I stumbled out onto a dirt road, gasping for air, shaking all over. I flagged down a passing ranger, barely able to speak. They searched the area, but found nothing. No circles, no fabric, no sign that anyone else had been there. My story was met with polite skepticism, the kind reserved for people who spent too much time alone in the woods. But I know what I saw. I know what I felt. And I still have the torn photograph, hidden away in a drawer, proof that something, or someone, was out there with me, watching, waiting, and the hiker who vanished before me. They were never found. Only a circle of sticks, a scrap of red fabric, and a single scratched-out photograph left behind. It's easy to think that the wilderness is the only place where people disappear, that it takes miles of forest and the silence of nature to swallow someone whole.
Ow.
But the truth is, vanishing doesn't always happen in the deep woods or on lonely trails. Sometimes it happens in the last place you'd ever expect, right in the middle of a quiet suburban neighborhood, surrounded by locked doors and familiar faces. If you think getting lost in the wild is terrifying, just wait until you hear about someone vanishing from their own home without a single trace. I used to believe that home was the safest place in the world. Four walls, a sturdy door, neighbors you wave to every morning. The hum of lawnmowers and the distant sound of kids playing in the street. Our house was the kind of place where nothing bad ever happened. At least that's what I thought before my brother disappeared. It was a regular Thursday evening. My parents were in the kitchen, arguing over what to make for dinner, and I was upstairs, scrolling through my phone. My brother Jamie was in his room, headphones on, probably gaming with his friends. The house felt normal, warm, familiar, filled with the little sounds of everyday life. Around 7, Mom called us down to eat. I remember Jamie's door was closed, but I could hear the muffled thump of music. I knocked, told him dinner was ready, and he shouted back, "Be there in a sec." I went downstairs, not thinking twice. But when we sat down at the table, Jamie never showed. At first we figured he'd lost track of time. My dad went up to get him, but came back down looking confused. "He's not in his room," he said. "His computer's on, but he's not there." We checked the bathroom, the garage, even the backyard. Nothing. His shoes were still by the door. His phone was charging on his desk, and his jacket hung on the hook in the hallway. It was like he'd just evaporated. We searched the house from top to bottom, calling his name, opening every closet, every crawl space. The front and back doors were both locked from the inside. All the windows were shut. There was no sign of forced entry, no broken glass. Nothing out of place, except for the growing sense of dread in my chest. My mom started to panic, her voice rising as she called Jamie's friends, asking if he'd left to meet them. No one had seen him. No one had heard from him. My dad called the police, and I remember the way the officer looked at us, sympathetic, but skeptical. "Are you sure he didn't sneak out?" he asked. "Maybe he just needed some space." But Jamie wasn't like that. He hated being outside after dark. never left without his phone. And he definitely wouldn't have left his computer mid-game, headphones still buzzing with the voices of his friends. The police searched the house, just like we had. They found nothing. No footprints, no fingerprints that didn't belong. The only thing out of the ordinary was a single muddy handprint on the inside of Jamie's bedroom window. It was small, almost childlike, and none of us could explain how it got there. The window was locked tight, the screen undisturbed. Days passed. Flyers went up around the neighborhood. My parents barely slept, jumping at every phone call, every knock at the door. The police questioned everyone, neighbors, delivery drivers, even the mailman. No one had seen anything. No one had heard a thing. At night, the house felt different. The air was heavy, the silence oppressive. I started noticing little things, a cold draft in the hallway, the faint sound of footsteps when everyone else was asleep, the feeling of being watched. My mom said it was just nerves, but I could see the fear in her eyes. A week after Jamie vanished, I found something strange. I was cleaning his room, trying to keep busy, when I noticed a slip of paper wedged behind his desk. It was a torn page from his notebook, covered in frantic, messy handwriting. Over and over, he'd written the same phrase: "It's in the walls. It's in the walls. It's in the walls." I showed it to my parents, but they didn't know what to make of it. Jamie had never mentioned anything weird, never complained about noises or shadows. But after that, I started listening. And sometimes late at night, I'd hear a faint scratching, like fingernails dragging along the inside of the drywall. The police eventually closed the case, calling it a runaway. But we knew better. Jamie was gone, but not in the way they thought. There was no goodbye, no explanation, just a locked house and a family left with nothing but questions. Sometimes I still hear those scratches. Sometimes I wake up convinced I've heard Jamie's voice, calling from somewhere just out of reach. And every time I walk past his room, I glance at the window, half expecting to see another muddy handprint pressed against the glass. Home isn't always safe. Sometimes the scariest disappearances happen in the places you trust the most. And sometimes the ones who vanish aren't as far away as you think. It's one thing to disappear into the wilderness, swallowed by trees and shadows. But to vanish from your own home, with your family, just a few steps away, that's a different kind of nightmare. The unanswered questions, the strange evidence, the sense that something is still lurking just out of sight. But as unsettling as that story is, nothing compares to the next disappearance. This one happened in broad daylight, surrounded by thousands of people, and it remains unsolved to this day. If you thought the last two stories were disturbing, just wait, because the final case will haunt you long after the story ends. There's a certain kind of freedom that comes with being lost in a crowd. At a music festival, you can disappear into the sea of faces. Let the music drown out your worries, and just exist in the moment. That's what drew my friend Riley and me to the annual Summer Pulse Festival. It's a weekend of music, lights, and thousands of strangers all chasing the same electric high. We'd been planning it for months. Riley was the kind of person who lived for this stuff. Always the first to dance, the last to leave, the one who could make friends with anyone. I was quieter, more cautious, but with Riley around, I felt braver. We arrived early, set up our tent, and spent the first day weaving through crowds, laughing until our faces hurt and losing ourselves in the music. The second night was when everything changed. It started out like any other festival night. Neon lights flickering, bass thumping through the ground, the air thick with the smell of sweat and food trucks. Riley wanted to see a band playing on the far stage, so we pushed our way through the crowd, hands clasped so we wouldn't get separated. But somewhere along the way, I lost my grip. 1 second, Riley was right beside me, her face lit up by the stage lights, and the next, she was gone. At first, I wasn't worried. It's easy to lose someone in a crowd like that. I texted her, called her name, scanned the faces around me, no answer. I figured she'd just gotten swept up in the music, maybe found some new friends. I waited by the stage, watching the crowd thin out as the set ended, but Riley never showed. I spent the next hour searching, checking the food stalls, the bathrooms, the first aid tent. I asked everyone I could find, showing them her picture, but no one remembered seeing her. The festival staff were sympathetic but overwhelmed. People get separated all the time, they said. She'd turn up, but as the night dragged on, my worry turned to panic. I called her phone over and over, but it went straight to voicemail. I checked our tent, thinking maybe she'd gone back to charge her phone or grab a jacket, but it was empty. Her bag was still there, her wallet, her favorite sunglasses. Only her phone and the clothes she was wearing were missing. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying the moment I lost her, trying to remember if I'd seen anything strange. The next morning, I went to the festival's security tent and begged them to check the surveillance footage. They agreed, but warned me that with so many people, it would be like finding a needle in a haystack. Hours later, they called me in to watch a clip. The footage was grainy, shot from a camera mounted high above the crowd. I could see myself and Riley weaving through the mass of people, her bright yellow jacket easy to spot. Then, just as we reached the edge of the stage, Riley stopped. She turned, as if someone had called her name, and looked directly at the camera. For a split second, her face changed, her smile faded, her eyes wide with something like fear or confusion. Then she stepped backward, disappearing behind a group of people. That was it. She never reappeared on any other camera. The police got involved, but there was little they could do. They interviewed festival goers, but the accounts were all the same. No one remembered seeing Riley after that moment.
Oh, yeah.
One girl said she thought she saw someone matching Riley.
Yes.
Description near the edge of the woods behind the festival grounds, but she couldn't be sure. Another guy claimed he heard a scream during the headliner's set, but with the music so loud it could have been anything. The strangest thing was the video. I watched it over and over, trying to make sense of Riley's expression. It was like she'd seen something, or someone, that no one else could. Some people online said it looked like she was hypnotized or in a trance. Others thought she was scared, that maybe someone had threatened her. But no one could explain how she vanished so completely in the middle of a crowd with cameras everywhere. A few days after the festival, I got a message from an anonymous account. It was a short video clip, shaky and out of focus, clearly shot on a phone. It showed the woods behind the festival grounds, just as the sun was coming up. For a moment, the camera caught a glimpse of someone in a yellow jacket, standing perfectly still among the trees. The figure turned, and even though the face was blurry, I swear it was Riley. Then the video cut out. I sent it to the police, but they couldn't trace the sender. They searched the woods but found nothing. No footprints, no clothing, no sign that anyone had been there. The official story was that Riley ran away, maybe overwhelmed by the crowd or the noise, but I know her. She wouldn't have left without telling me. She wouldn't have just disappeared. Months have passed, but I still see her face in my dreams, turning wide-eyed, just before she vanished. Sometimes I wonder if she saw something out there, something none of us could understand. Sometimes I replay that video, searching for clues in the shadows between the trees. The festival goes on every year, and every year people talk about the girl who disappeared. Some say she's still out there wandering the woods waiting to be found. Others whisper about the things that live just beyond the edge of the lights, watching, waiting for someone to step out of sight. All I know is that Riley was there one moment and gone the next. No answers, no closure, just a haunting mystery that refuses to let go. And if you ever find yourself lost in a crowd, remember, sometimes it's not the wilderness or the darkness you need to fear. Sometimes it's what's hiding in plain sight, waiting for the perfect moment to make you disappear. Disappearance is a special kind of horror. It's not just the loss, it's the silence that follows, the endless questions. The way a person's absence echoes through every ordinary moment, whether it's a hiker swallowed by the woods, a brother who vanishes from the safety of his own home, or a friend lost in a sea of faces. The terror isn't just in what happened. It's in what we'll never know. We like to believe we're safe, that the world is mapped and measured, that if we lock our doors and stick together, nothing can touch us. But these stories prove otherwise. Sometimes people disappear for reasons we can't explain, leaving behind only fragments, muddy handprints, torn photographs, a glimpse of yellow in the trees. The truth is, the world is full of places where the light doesn't reach. And sometimes, those places are closer than we think. So what do you believe happened? Do you have your own theories about these vanishings, or maybe a story of your own that still keeps you up at night? Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think, because sometimes the scariest answers come from the people who are still searching. And remember, the next time you're alone, or even surrounded by people, pay attention to the details. The world is full of mysteries, and not all of them want to stay hidden. After all, the scariest part about these stories is that they could happen to anyone, even you.